So this is Pablo with Meditation Amsterdam, and it is a nice Saturday afternoon. I thought I'd do a little video based on a book that I've been reading lately, and which it's kind of like it's not a book to be read quickly. It's the Yoga Vasista or Vasista's Yoga, and it's considered to be one of the foundational books on non-dualism, explaining the singularity of the oneness of everything, if you will, the illusory nature of world and mind, and how one should constantly strive to realize this in order to purify one's perception and to arrive to real intelligence. And so today's the book touches upon that subject just time and time again. It repeats it a gazillion times in several different ways, just landing the point or driving the point home rather, over and over again. And it is recommended as a daily reading, where in the sort of narrative of the book, it says, and every time your daily segment of reading comes to an end, it says, at that time all the sages left to their quarters for the night. That means stop reading today and carry on tomorrow, right? So it is kind of divided in little daily sections. I think the reason for that is that if you read more than such sections during each day, it becomes quite repetitive, which on a single given day is not so great. But when read one day after the next, it's a kind of brainwashing, if you want to see it in a negative way. But it is. I've done videos about this before. It's about soaking your mind in a certain narrative, shapes your mind around that narrative, right? So that's kind of how I see that book, the Vasista's Yoga. It is not a book that I would recommend to somebody who is starting the meditative or self-realization path. I think you need to be kind of ready for that book, or it's just going to read like complete gibberish and you're going to hate it. If you've already realized the self, even on a small scale, it's a book that could propel your progress forward. And so I was reading today's segments on the book, and it was being very explicit about the thinking mind being a kind of thief, or a sort of an imposter. And it explains it in a way that really did resonate for me. And it's so when you first come across this, you might resist it, but then it really does make sense. So most of us, before realizing the self, tend to identify ourselves with our thinking mind. Right? So from the moment we wake up, our thinking mind is producing thoughts and taking input from the senses and categorizing and conceptualizing everything. And then it is projecting us into the past and confronting us with situations we regret or that we miss, and projecting us into the future, into situations that we worry about or that we wish would come to pass. And because it never stops, we don't know we don't know what life is in the absence of a constant stream of thinking. But more importantly, we don't know who we are apart from that ongoing thinking entity. So we are completely identified with it, right? There are no gaps in the thought and emotion and perception process. It's an ongoing movie that never stops. So we have no clue who we are apart from that. We are identified with that stream. And as you begin to practice meditation, you begin to create gaps in the stream of mind and perception. And in those gaps, if you're paying attention, you start to realize the self, right? Which is the ground of existence that is there and which enables the thinking and the emotions and the perceptions to appear. And that's your real self, or what you could call your higher self, or many names have been given to that. Now that realization starts to dawn slowly as you begin to meditate, but you also need to be instructed and educated into that realization, and you need to be looking for it, because otherwise you'll be meditating for years at a time and the realization will never dawn. Or it'll dawn intuitively, but you can't quite put your finger on it. So you keep thinking that focus, equanimity, and mindful awareness, which are the three qualities of mind that grow with meditation, are the objective of meditation. Like that's what you want to reach. You want to reach the highest levels of awareness, focus, and equanimity, when in fact what you want to reach, if there is such a thing, is you want the realization of self to dawn in a clear way, through having a mind which embodies the qualities of focus, equanimity, and awareness. And so it's important to know that what you're trying to do is to realize the self through those gaps of mind, which become more extensive over time. So now, because you at the beginning of the journey, before you meditate, lack gaps of mind, or gaps in which mind is absent, you identify with the stream of mind. And you also tend to think that the thinking mind is the most intelligent thing that there is, and that's who you are, right? We like to think of ourselves as intelligent. Most people do. And so you start to think that intelligence consists in the ability to acquire knowledge, right? In other words, store things into memory, and to sort of apply them in the world, right? In an effective way, so that you would acquire hard skills or soft skills, or even mental skills, right? Even the ability to put your mind into certain states of mind, and you would acquire all that knowledge, and you would practice it, and you would become good at applying that knowledge and that memory to bring it up and to execute on the basis of that. And if you were even a little bit smarter than that, you would start to combine all those different separate bits of knowledge into interesting combinations, and you would come up with you would be creative. You would come up with kind of new stuff. And so that's what we think intelligence is, and we tend to think that we are our thinking mind, and we tend to think that our thinking mind is intelligent. However, when you take the point of view of the Yoga Vasista and non-duality, they say, listen, that's not who you are, and that's not what intelligence is, because the mind is inert and stupid in its qualities. It can store stuff, and it can combine stuff, but that's all mechanics, right? So if you program a computer well enough, it can do that way better than we can, right? So a computer can store more, and it can combine more, and that's why if you look nowadays at artificial intelligence, it's even starting to produce art or solve problems that have been out there for a very long time, right? The other day they announced that an artificial intelligence computer, led by a team of experts, by the way, so it didn't do it on its own, had discovered how proteins folded into, or rather how amino acids folded into proteins and things like that, and amazing stuff, right? And so we think oh, that's intelligence. But what the Vasista Yoga is saying is, listen, the mind is just a mechanical device that does that stuff blindly, right? It's neurons firing and doing that stuff. But all its intelligence, it's actually borrowed, and it is borrowed from the higher self, or pure consciousness, so to speak. And it's fairly easy to see that, because you want to ask yourself, how intelligent would the thinking mind be in the absence of the consciousness to illuminate it, right? And that applies then to a computer indeed. So suppose that there were no conscious beings in the universe anymore, and there was a computer doing all kinds of computations and combining things, you know. So a nuclear holocaust hit Earth, all conscious life disappears, and all that is left is this super AI computer running computations and doing stuff. Would you call it intelligent? And I would argue that it's doing mechanical computation, but because there is no light of consciousness to illuminate and perceive it, and sort of breathe life into it, if you will, it's just inert. It's just a process running like any other natural process runs. Particles bounce around, and so what? So then the Vasista Yoga says, see, it's making a case for disidentifying yourself from your thinking mind. To say, realize that your thinking mind is nothing but a blind process of data acquisition and combination happening all on its own. And it pretends to be intelligent. And even worse than that, it pretends to be you. It says, I am you, and look how intelligent we are. But if you start to poke into it, it's like, what do you mean you are me? You're just doing stuff. You are producing thoughts the same way my bowels produce poop, right? Like you have no intelligence of your own thinking mind. You are borrowing intelligence from my consciousness, from myself, from my deep heart of awareness self, and then you're appropriating it and pretending to be me, right? So you want to reappropriate the sense of self, and realize that the true intelligence lies in your ability to perceive, in the knowing self that illuminates the thinking mind and chooses to observe and go like, oh, there's the thinking mind doing its thinking and pretending to be me. And how cute is that? But it isn't me. I am lending the mind its sense of, the sense of self. And see, when you don't meditate and you don't have a sense of self, you have no choice but to think that you are the thinking mind, and to go about your business believing that all the time. This is something that needs cultivation, and it needs time very often, right? These realizations don't just dawn. So you need to meditate, and you need to study, if not study scriptures and stuff like that, you need to listen to people who have understood this quite clearly, so that they can pull you out of the illusion that you are the thinking mind, and that the thinking mind is intelligent. That's simply not true. The thinking mind is a mechanical device that just does its thing, and it borrows its intelligence, or it coopts its energy and its intelligence and its life from you, from the inner self, from the light of awareness that shines upon it. And without that light of awareness, it's nothing. And it's in fact nothing anyway, right? But it pretends to be intelligent and to be alive, and it pretends to be you. Now I still get hijacked by my thinking mind often, except that now I notice it very, very quickly. And one of the ways I notice it is it very often tends to try and find enemies in the environment. It tends to try and compare itself and find itself either superior or inferior to others in the environment, or to wish for certain situations. And whenever it's doing it, I'm onto it now. I'm like, oh, there it is. I mean, I'm gonna give my thinking mind a nickname pretty soon. I don't know what it's gonna be, but I'm gonna give it a nickname, and it's gonna be like, oh, there you are again, right? There you are again, pretending to be me, being worried about stuff. But I'm not gonna lend you my sense of self anymore, Why would I do that? You're insane. Your thinking mind is an insane. It's a fine instrument for solving problems, but it contains a kernel of insanity because it's always trying to win a game, right? And to do that, it needs to create the sense of separation of self and other, and it needs to create enemies and future scenarios and regrets and all manner of things that you don't need. Because once you find the sense of self that can survive without the stream of mind, you want to be there. And so now you have, it's almost like you found bedrock. You found self bedrock that can live without the mind and its illusions. So you don't need it, right? You no longer need the thinking mind and all its fabrications and machinations in order to live a rich life and just do your thing. Sometimes I will feel either anxious or very lonely, and it'll pop up, and my thinking mind will start to make up all these stories. And I caught myself 2 or 3 days ago in one of those moments under the shower, and suddenly, having like this kind of mind attack of like loneliness and where's my life going and stuff. And I saw it, and I'm like, well, hold on a second now. You are co-opting myself, my higher self, and I'm losing my sense of self in this thinking mind story. And I'm gonna cut that lifeline. I'm really gonna cut it, and I'm just gonna regain my sense of self and see that this is just an emotional, mental process running. And that allowed me to just completely separate and to ask myself the question, at this moment, do I choose to be a victim or a warrior? And I'm like, screw this, I'm a warrior. I don't want to be all concerned about all this manner of things. I don't need this. The thinking mind and its worrying or anxious process wants you to believe that it is doing this on your behalf for your it's doing it, it says, I know what's best for me. And that is true, but it is best for itself as an entity, as a separate entity that is not you. So, and it tricks itself into saying, I know what is best for me, and if I worry enough about this topic, I'll somehow sort it out. That's a trap. It's a trap. No amount of worrying about a certain topic will solve it, right? It just makes you miserable. It does nothing else. So you observe it and you go like, oh, there's that trap. There's the trap of saying, if I only make enough of big of an enemy out of this situation, or about my past, or about my future, or about the thingy, I'll think my way into a better position. But you feel bad, and you go, oh, no, this is the incorrect approach. My thinking mind has now it's now like a parasitic entity feeding from myself and impersonating myself. But now I'm going to cut that lifeline, and I'm just going to observe it for what it is and go, oh, there you are. Okay, I'm onto you now. And you know what? I don't think so, right? I know who you are now. I know who you are very, very well, and you've impersonated me for a very long time, and I'm just not going to buy into it. And then all of a sudden, you're back in the now, and you realize that you don't need that life story of struggle in order to just be okay. Now, I might do a separate video on the following point, which is that you are not, okay, so look, framing this as a battle is already problematic. It doesn't need to be a battle. It's just a process, right? Comes up, you don't need to make a big deal out of it. But that is not to say that it's an easy process, because the ability to think and project yourself into past and future probably conveyed an enormous evolutionary advantage to us at some point, right? So primates who could not do that were annihilated by primates who could, and that's who we became. So, and it's not a small evolutionary advantage. The ability to project yourself into different versions of the future and pick one, is an enormous evolutionary advantage. That's why we've become, at least on the surface level of things, the dominant species in the world. I don't think there is such a thing, by the way. I think, you know, a virus such as COVID can come and wipe us out immediately. So we're not dominant, you know, in the absolute sense of the word, but, you know, on the complex food chain side of things, we occupy, you know, the dominant place in the hierarchy. And we became that because we have a mental ability to think like no other animal does, and to communicate and to build knowledge and have it be cumulative, which is a huge thing, of course. And so with such an advantage, and perhaps also on a reproduction level, whichever member of the tribe had a higher thinking mind would rise to the top of the mating game, even within a certain tribe or a group. Our thinking mind has become enormous, and also culturally we really what would you call it? We deify the thinking mind, and we minimize the intuitive and the being mind. So you are not only fighting. Again, careful with that framing. I'm going to frame it that way for now. Just don't bite too much into it. But we are, in a sense, trying to overturn a very, very long evolutionary chain of events that leads to the thinking mind having enormous momentum, and culturally also having enormous momentum. Right. So you are against a cultural and an evolutionary momentum. And you are and nobody can do this for you. You are truly on your own on this. That's why books like the Yoga Vasista and practicing meditation and keeping the right company and just soaking your mind in the right understanding is very important, because otherwise you can't really do this. The momentum of culture and an environment and evolution is too big. The thinking mind you won't stop it. You can't, right? So that plus your amygdala and all your anxiety would just go, and they carry you. They take you over. So maybe I'll make a separate video about this notion of the work that you need to do to overturn this enormous momentum, and that the overturning that is the big task in life, so that you can come from a better place when your ambitions are not dictated by the thinking mind and the fears and the anxieties and the anger that it tends to brew, but out of the true desire to love and create. Right? That's where you want to come from. So yeah, that's today's video. It's about the thinking mind being kind of a thief and an imposter of the self, borrowing its energy and its life and its intelligence from the self, but it is not the self. And that your task is to be able to distinguish those two, and to catch the thinking mind for what it truly is, use it for what it truly is, which is just a tool, but not let it take over and pretend that it's you, because you'll be in trouble when that happens. So yeah, I hope that helps, and I'll be back with more videos. Cheerio.